is feminine or masculine or androgynous is something that can only be defined for me by me.
Go-go dancer at a pride party, and the amount of money that I made versus the amount of money that the thin people made was not the same.
I don't think that straight people really realize just how, like, heteronormative and, like, built around straight people society is.
All right, guys, let's move on to everybody's favorite part of the podcast, where I subject myself to mental torture and react to some unhinged TikToks from the alphabet people. Up first, more dumb woke outrage over Chick-fil-A.
I'm a dietitian, and this is what I order from ChickfilA. Nothing, because I don't support bigots.
Honestly, I just can't relate to this at all. They could be as bigoted as they want, as bigoted in the world. I'm still going in for that chicken. I'm sorry, not sorry. Those waffle fries. I also like that kale crunch. I'm here for it. But more importantly, this whole backlash against Chick-fil-A is really dumb, and it's basically based on nothing at this point. So it goes back to the past where Chick-fil-A's owners, in their personal capacity, donated to groups and opposed gay marriage. The thing is, though, Chick-fil-A as a company never in its practices or its policies discriminated against gay people or gay customers at all. The issue people had with them was always just about the private beliefs of their owners mostly. And that's no way to go about deciding who you're going to do business with. I mean, do you make sure that every waiter shares your politics when you go out to eat? Do you quiz your baristas who they voted for last election when you make your way through the Starbucks drive-thru? No. One of the great things about capitalism and free markets is that we trade with people who are very different from ourselves, and that's okay. And more importantly, as far as Chick-fil-A donating to anti-LGBTQ groups or anything, that was always disputable. It was always more complicated than that. They donated to groups that had some sort of purpose, like the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and then had maybe anti-gay policies, but that wasn't the emphasis of their work. So it was always more complicated than that. But regardless, they stopped all the controversial giving back in 2019. These woke outrage mongers just don't care about facts and never bother to update their talking points. Up next, is the LGBT community fatphobic?
I'm gonna be really honest, there's a lot of really fatphobic people out there, even in the queer community. I was a go-go dancer at a pride party, and the amount of money that I made versus the amount of money that the thin people made was not the same. Sometimes people don't even feel comfortable like putting the money in my underwear, but people are like really awkward with like, should I touch you? Should I? And I see them fully touching other people. So those are little reminders that people still have a lot of work to do around.
I'm sorry, but what the f did I just watch? There's nothing unique to the LGBT community about the fact that people don't typically like erotic dancers who are morbidly obese. And it's not fatphobic to be attracted to health and fitness. The definition of fat phobia, according to Cambridge Dictionary, is an unreasonable dislike or unfair treatment of people because they are fat. Of course, I don't support bullying or body shaming or being mean or discriminating against anybody, of course overweight people included. But people still have no obligation to find you physically attractive when they don't. It's natural and evolutionary that people are attracted to health and fitness and other traits associated with survival. That's not unreasonable, so it's not fatphobic. There's also something weird and frankly vaguely predatory about basically trying to say that it's problematic or bigoted that other people aren't comfortable touching your private parts. Whatever happened to the whole emphasis on consent and no means no? Maybe you should stop all the nonsense and find a new line of work. Up next, words officially mean nothing anymore.
Oh, honey, of course you see an Adam's apple. That's because I have one. I also have hairy armpits and big biceps and a dick. I'm sorry your insult didn't land, but thanks for giving me the opportunity to platform this point, which is that none of those things make me any less feminine. What is feminine or masculine or androgynous is something that can only be defined for me by me. I can't define it for anyone else, and neither can you. Which also means you can't insult me by pointing out things that you perceive as masculine, so better luck next time, I guess.
The math isn't mathing for me. If hairy armpits and big biceps are now considered feminine, then words have lost all meaning. Honestly, I struggle to even follow this train of thought. Like, the incoherence here is so palpable that I'm trying to decipher it for you guys, and even I'm struggling as somebody who's buried in this stuff all the time online. Seriously, if masculine and feminine are concepts that are completely subject to your own self-determination, they are completely subjective, they're whatever you want them to be, then how do they even exist as distinct, different, or opposite categories? How are they even categories at all? Red and blue refer to specific colors. If red and blue could refer to any color, then the words red and blue would be meaningless. There'd be no real difference between red and blue. I'm all about people living their life however they want and looking however they want, even if that's not traditionally masculine and they're a male or traditionally feminine and they're a woman. I'm totally fine with all of that. But I can't feel like some of these people are essentially gender anarchists. They really do want to destroy the concepts of gender and sex as we know them in society. And I don't think they can be surprised that they're encountering resistance to that. Up next, a creepy little song about bathrooms?
I'm a trans girl and I just wanna pee in peace, but I'm afraid someone will see me and then call the police. I'm not some pervert attacker, I just need to empty my bladder, so I'd really love it if you let me be. Repeat after me. I'm not afraid of my trans friends. I'm not afraid of my trans friends. I'm really afraid of cisgender men. I'm really afraid of cisgender men. I will let you pee in peace. I will let you pee in peace. Because I really don't want a UTI. Capiche?
I'm really not a fan of the singing thing and the whole, like, childlike demeanor almost that some of these TikTok activists seem to be going for. Like, why are you a trans girl? Aren't you a trans woman? You're a grown adult. On the bathroom thing, though, I do have some sympathy for this person's position, what they're trying to say, because if you present fully as a woman, or and you are, of course, by nature biologically male, it doesn't make a lot of sense to force you to use the men's room. Vice versa as well. If you're a transgender man who fully presents and looks like a man, it doesn't make a lot of sense to force you to use the men's room either. And transgender people aren't more dangerous or out there roaming and going into women's bathrooms to hurt people. At the same time, though, I can understand the concerns that women and other people have, not about trans individuals specifically harming them, but that if you erode the barriers that keep opposite sex people out of those spaces, that, yes, cisgender men or just men could abuse those rules and come and harm them. I can completely understand those fears and those concerns. At the same time, the kind of person who would do them harm probably isn't deterred by rules in the first place anyway. It's not an easy issue, and I don't necessarily see a one-size-fits-all solution. What I do know is that vaguely creepy TikTok sing-alongs aren't going to solve it. Up next, this TikToker is very concerned about heteronormativity.
I don't think that straight people really realize just how, like, heteronormative and, like, built around straight people society is. Like, even, like, earlier this year, I was getting my blood drawn on my birthday, January 1st, in case anyone wants to buy me anything for next year. Not that you have to. And so I was getting my blood drawn, and I really hate needles. Hot take. I hate needles. And the person who's drawing my blood, a very nice woman, saw that I was very nervous. And she was like, oh, like, she's like, sweetie, think of good things. Think of the beach. Think of beautiful girls. And I was like, well, and I said to her, and I was very polite. I said, you know, I'm not really sure if my boyfriend would appreciate that. This was when I had a boyfriend. And she was like, oh, like, okay, I apologize. And I was wearing this shirt, I think. And, like, I read like this. And so I'm like, the fact that you would assume that, like, in this day and age, you'd be like, oh yeah, like, think of little beautiful girls, you, Aiden. Anyway, it's just interesting. I don't fault, like, I'm not, like, dox her, because I also don't remember her name, but I wouldn't. I have nothing against her, but I'm just like, that's how built into everything heterosexuality is.
I do not understand the point of this video. Like, why do TikTokers always seem obsessed with these petty complaints in the most minor of interactions and trying to spin some narrative about societal ills based on them? Also, I find it funny because for a long time, I feel like they were saying, don't assume my gender, don't assume my sexuality. And now he's saying you should have assumed I was gay because of how I present and act. More importantly though, I don't really understand why they're so bothered by the concept of heteronormativity. The word norm, at its derivative, is actually about the statistical norm. What's the most common occurrence is what that means. And it is in fact the case that the vast majority of human beings are heterosexual. Whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 10, it's hard to know exactly, or something in between. A small but not insignificant minority of the population is gay or lesbian. So it kind of makes sense that the default in society would be heterosexuality when that's what the vast majority of people are. Now, that's not to say that there shouldn't be acceptance and tolerance for alternatives and something that's not the norm. I think, of course, there should be. But it still makes sense that that's treated as the norm because it is. In any other situation, we would see this, right? Like the vast majority of people are right-handed. So if you meet someone and you don't know, you'll probably assume they're right-handed. If you find out they're actually left-handed, you should just accept that and let them write with their left hand. But it's still okay to assume that people are generally right-handed. This entire genre of woke LGBT activism and criticism has just never made any sense to me. But I guess that's the norm as well. All right, guys, that's it for this part of the podcast where I put myself through mental torture for your entertainment, pleasure, and viewing. So you better like, comment, subscribe, yada, 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 because I lose brain cells every time I do this, and I do it for you.